English with Aurora, Episode 15. English for Traveling. Hello there, my wonderful English learners. This is Aurora, and welcome back to English with Aurora, your favorite podcast for learning English in a fun, practical, and engaging way. I'm absolutely thrilled that you've decided to spend some time with me today, and I promise you're going to walk away from this episode feeling more confident about using English in one of the most exciting situations possible: traveling. You know, just last week I was at the airport, and I overheard a conversation between two travelers. One was clearly nervous about communicating in English during their upcoming trip to London, and the other was sharing some basic phrases. It got me thinking, how many of you have felt that same anxiety? That worry about whether you'll be understood when you're asking for directions, ordering food, or checking into a hotel in an English-speaking country. Well, today we're going to change all of that. We're diving deep into English for traveling, and I'm going to equip you with everything you need to feel confident and comfortable on your next adventure. Whether you're planning a business trip to New York, a romantic getaway to Paris where English might be your common language with locals, or a backpacking adventure through Southeast Asia where English serves as the universal language, this episode is going to be your travel companion. Now, here's what makes me so excited about teaching travel English. It's immediately practical. Every single phrase, every expression, every piece of vocabulary we learn today is something you can use right away. And even if you're not traveling soon, practicing these scenarios will dramatically improve your overall English skills because travel situations require you to be clear, direct, and confident in your communication. At the airport, your first English challenge. Let's start our journey at the very beginning, the airport. The airport is often where your English adventure begins, and it can feel overwhelming with all the announcements, signs, and conversations happening around you. But don't worry, I'm going to break it down for you step by step. First, let's talk about check-in. When you approach the check-in counter, the airline employee will typically greet you with something like, "Good morning, how can I help you today?" Or, "May I see your passport and ticket, please?" Now, here's your first travel English tip. Always have your essential phrases ready. You might say, "Good morning, I'd like to check in for flight 247 to London." Or simply, "I'm checking in for the flight to London." The agent might ask you several questions, and these are quite standard, so let's practice them. They might say, "Did you pack your bags yourself?" The answer is usually, "Yes, I packed them myself." They might ask, "Are you carrying any liquids, sharp objects, or electronic devices in your carry-on?" You can respond with, "No, nothing to declare," or "Yes, I have a laptop in my carry-on bag." Here's something interesting that many English learners don't realize. Airport staff are very accustomed to speaking with non-native speakers. They're patient, and they want to help you. So if you don't understand something, it's perfectly okay to say, "Could you please repeat that?" Or, "I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Could you speak a bit slower, please?" Now let's talk about those airport announcements. You've probably heard them. Sometimes they're crystal clear, and sometimes they sound like someone speaking through a fish tank. The key is to listen for specific information. Listen for flight numbers, gate numbers, and action words like boarding, delayed, or canceled. A typical announcement might sound like this: "Attention passengers, flight BA 247 to London Heathrow is now boarding at gate 15. Please have your boarding passes and passports ready." The essential information here is the flight number, destination, the fact that it's boarding, and the gate number. But what if your flight is delayed? You might hear, "We regret to inform passengers that flight UA 156 to New York has been delayed by approximately 2 hours due to weather conditions. Updated departure time is now 3:30 p.m. In this case, you've learned about the delay, the reason, and the new time. Here's a personal story that might help you feel more confident. A few years ago, I was traveling to Spain, and there was a gate change announcement that I completely missed because I was distracted by my phone. When I finally looked up, I realized everyone from my gate area had disappeared. I felt a moment of panic, But then I remembered, airport information desks are there to help. I walked up to the nearest desk and said, "Excuse me, I think I missed an announcement about flight IB 205 to Madrid. Could you tell me which gate it's departing from?" The staff member was incredibly helpful and even walked me partway to the new gate. The lesson here is that asking for help is not just okay, it's smart. Hotel conversations, making yourself at home. Once you've successfully navigated the airport, your next major English interaction will likely be at your hotel. Hotel interactions are fantastic for practicing English because they follow predictable patterns, but they also give you opportunities to express your specific needs and preferences. When you arrive at your hotel, you'll approach the front desk for check-in. The receptionist will likely greet you with, "Good evening, welcome to the Grand Hotel. How may I assist you?" Or "Good afternoon, checking in today?" Your response can be straightforward. "Good evening, I have a reservation under the name Smith," or "Yes, I'm checking in. My name is Maria Rodriguez." The receptionist will typically ask for identification and a credit card for incidentals. They might say, "May I see your passport and a credit card for the room deposit?" Don't be surprised by this, it's standard procedure. You can simply hand over your documents and say, "Here you are," or "Of course, here's my passport and card." Now, here's where things get interesting. This is your opportunity to ask about hotel amenities and services. You might ask, "What time is breakfast served?" Or "Is there Wi-Fi in the rooms?" Or "Could you recommend a good restaurant nearby?" These questions show that you're not just surviving in English, you're thriving and seeking additional information to enhance your experience. Let me share a useful phrase that can solve many hotel-related issues. "I was wondering if you could help me with something." This is polite, not too direct, and opens the door for various requests. For example, "I was wondering if you could help me with directions to the city center," or "I was wondering if you could recommend a pharmacy nearby." Sometimes things don't go exactly as planned with your hotel room. Maybe the air conditioning isn't working, or you requested a non-smoking room but got a smoking room instead. Here's how to handle these situations professionally. You can say, "I'm sorry, but there seems to be a problem with my room. The air conditioning isn't working. Could someone take a look at it?" Or, "I believe there's been a mistake. I reserved a non-smoking room, but this room has a strong cigarette smell." The key to successful hotel communication is being polite but clear about your needs. Hotel staff want their guests to be comfortable, so they're usually very willing to help resolve any issues. Restaurant adventures, more than just food. Now, let's talk about one of my favorite aspects of traveling, experiencing local cuisine. Restaurants provide some of the richest opportunities for English conversation, because you're not just ordering food. You're often chatting with servers, asking about local specialties, and sometimes even striking up conversations with other diners. When you enter a restaurant, you might be greeted with, "Good evening, do you have a reservation?" Or "How many people in your party tonight?" If you have a reservation, you can say, "Yes, I have a reservation for 2 under the name Johnson." If you don't have a reservation, you might say, "No reservation, but we're hoping you have a table for 2 available." Here's something that surprises many English learners. Servers in English-speaking countries often introduce themselves. They might say, "Hi, I'm Sarah, and I'll be taking care of you tonight. Can I start you off with something to drink?" This personal touch is common, especially in the United States, so don't be caught off guard by it. When it comes to ordering, don't be afraid to ask questions about the menu. Servers expect it, and it's part of their job to help you understand your options. You can ask, "What's the difference between the fish and chips and the beer-battered cod?" Or, "Is the chicken spicy?" Or, "What comes with the steak dinner?" Here's a phrase that's incredibly useful when you're unsure about something on the menu. "What would you recommend?" Servers often have great suggestions, and they know what the restaurant does well. You might also say, "I'm not familiar with this dish. Could you tell me what it is?" Let me tell you about an experience I had in a small restaurant in Ireland. I was looking at the menu, and there was a dish called bangers and mash. I had no idea what it was, so I asked the server, "Could you tell me what bangers and mash is?" She smiled and explained, "Oh, it's our traditional sausages with mashed potatoes and gravy. It's comfort food at its finest." Not only did I learn about the dish, but her enthusiasm made me want to try it, and it ended up being delicious. Sometimes you might have dietary restrictions or allergies that you need to communicate. This is important for your health, so don't hesitate to be clear about your needs. You can say, "I'm allergic to nuts. Are there any nuts in this dish?" Or, "I'm vegetarian. Do you have vegetarian options?" Or, "I'm gluten-free. Can this dish be prepared without wheat?" When you're ready to pay, you can catch the server's attention and say, "Could we have the check, please?" In British English, you would say, "Could we have the bill, please?" And here's a cultural tip. In the United States, tipping is expected and usually ranges from 18–20% of the bill before tax. In many other countries, tipping practices vary, so it's worth researching the local customs before you travel. Getting around. Transportation talk. Transportation is another area where strong English skills can make your travel experience so much smoother. Whether you're taking taxis, using public transportation, or asking for directions, being able to communicate clearly will save you time, money, and stress. Let's start with taxis. When you get into a taxi, the driver will typically ask, "Where to?" Or, "Where would you like to go?" You should have your destination ready, and it's helpful to have the address written down, especially if it's complicated. You might say, "Could you take me to 123 Main Street, please?" Or, "I'd like to go to the Marriott Hotel downtown." If you're not sure about the exact address, you can mention nearby landmarks. For example, "I'd like to go to the restaurant near Central Park," or, "Could you take me to the shopping mall on Fifth Avenue?" Most taxi drivers are familiar with major landmarks and popular destinations. Here's a useful phrase for taxi rides. "How long will it take to get there?" This helps you plan your time and also gives you an idea of what the fare might be. You can also ask, "Approximately how much will the fare be?" if you want to know the cost in advance. Sometimes you might want to make a stop along the way. You can say, "Could we stop at the ATM on the way?" Or, "Would it be possible to stop at the pharmacy quickly?" Most drivers are accommodating if you're polite about it. Public transportation can be a bit more challenging because it often involves reading signs, understanding announcements, and navigating systems. But it's also incredibly rewarding because it's often the most authentic way to experience a city like a local. When using buses or trains, you might need to ask, "Does this bus go to downtown?" Or, "Which platform for the train to Edinburgh?" Don't be shy about asking other passengers for help either. You can say, "Excuse me, do you know if this is the right train for the airport?" Here's something I learned during my travels in Japan, where English isn't the primary language, but the principle applies anywhere. Transportation apps and maps are your friends, but human interaction often provides the most reliable and up-to-date information. I was trying to get to a temple outside Tokyo, and the train schedule was confusing me. I asked a station employee, "Could you help me get to Kamakura?" He not only showed me which train to take, but also told me about a special tourist pass that would save me money. That personal interaction made all the difference. Walking and asking for directions is another common travel scenario. If you're lost or need directions, you can approach someone by saying, "Excuse me, could you help me with directions?" Or, "I'm sorry to bother you, but I'm looking for the British Museum. Do you know how to get there?" When someone gives you directions, they might use phrases like, "Go straight for 2 blocks, then turn left at the traffic light," or, "It's just around the corner from the post office." If the directions are complicated, don't hesitate to ask them to repeat or to speak more slowly. You can say, "I'm sorry, could you repeat that last part?" Or, "Could you speak a bit slower, please? My English isn't perfect." Shopping and money matters. Practical transactions. Shopping while traveling isn't just about buying souvenirs, though that's certainly fun. It's about navigating different types of stores, understanding pricing, and handling transactions in English. These interactions are usually brief but frequent, so having the right phrases ready can make your shopping experience much more enjoyable. In most shops, you'll be greeted with something like, "Hello, can I help you find anything today?" Or "Let me know if you need any assistance." If you're just browsing, you can respond with, "I'm just looking, thank you," or "Just browsing, thanks." If you need help finding something specific, you can say, "Yes, I'm looking for a souvenir for my sister," or "Do you have any local crafts?" Here's a phrase that's incredibly useful when shopping. "Do you have this in a different size?" Or "Do you have this in blue?" These questions help you find exactly what you're looking for. If you're trying on clothes, the shop assistant might ask, "How does it fit?" You can respond with, "It fits perfectly," "It's a bit too small," or "Do you have a larger size?" When it comes to prices, don't be afraid to ask, "How much is this?" Or "What's the price of this item?" In some countries and in certain types of markets, you might even be able to negotiate. You could try, "Is this your best price?" Or "Would you consider taking $20 for this?" Let me share a shopping story that taught me about cultural differences. I was in a market in Morocco and I admired a beautiful scarf. The vendor immediately quoted a price that seemed quite high. I was about to walk away when another traveler whispered to me, "You're supposed to negotiate here. It's part of the culture." So I tried saying, "That's a bit more than I wanted to spend. Could you do it for half that price?" What followed was a friendly negotiation that ended with both of us happy with the final price. The lesson here is that shopping customs vary greatly, and being open to local practices can enhance your experience. When you're ready to make a purchase, you'll need to handle payment. The cashier might ask, "How would you like to pay?" Or "Will that be cash or card?" You can respond with, "I'll pay by card, please," or "Cash, please." If you're paying by credit card, they might ask you to enter your PIN or sign a receipt. Sometimes you might need to exchange money or use an ATM. At a bank or currency exchange, you can say, "I'd like to exchange US dollars for British pounds," or "What's your exchange rate for euros?" When using an ATM, the instructions are usually in multiple languages, but it's helpful to know terms like withdrawal, balance inquiry, and receipt. Here's a practical tip about money and shopping while traveling. Always keep your receipts, especially for larger purchases. If you need to return something or if you're claiming tax refunds at the airport, you'll need proof of purchase. You can ask for a receipt by saying, "Could I have a receipt, please?" Hash emergency situations, when you need help most. Now, I hope you never find yourself in an emergency situation while traveling, but it's important to be prepared. Knowing how to ask for help, explain problems, and communicate urgently in English could be crucial for your safety and well-being. The most important phrase to know is simply, "Help me, please," or "I need help." If it's a serious emergency, don't worry about perfect grammar or pronunciation. Focus on being clear about what you need. "Call the police," "I need a doctor," or "Call an ambulance" are direct and will be understood immediately. For less urgent but still important situations, you can use phrases like, "I have a problem and I need some help," or "Something has happened and I'm not sure what to do." These phrases signal that you need assistance without causing panic. If you've lost something important like your passport or wallet, you can say, "I've lost my passport. What should I do?" Or "My wallet was stolen. Can you help me report it?" Embassy staff, police, and hotel personnel are trained to help travelers in these situations. Medical emergencies require specific vocabulary. If you need to describe symptoms, you might say, "I have a severe headache and I feel nauseous," or "I think I have food poisoning." If you're helping someone else, you could say, "My friend is unconscious," or "This person needs immediate medical attention." Here's a story that illustrates why it's so important to stay calm and communicate clearly in emergencies. A friend of mine was traveling in Thailand when she severely sprained her ankle while hiking. She was in pain and scared, but she managed to tell her guide, "I can't walk," My ankle is very painful. I think it might be broken. The guide understood immediately, called for help, and she was safely taken to a hospital. Her clear communication in English, despite being in pain and scared, ensured she got the help she needed quickly. For less serious problems, like getting locked out of your hotel room or having trouble with your phone, you can say, "I'm locked out of my room. Could you help me get back in?" Or, "My phone isn't working. Is there somewhere I can get it fixed?" Cultural communication, beyond words. Here's something that many English courses don't teach you. Successful travel communication is about much more than just vocabulary and grammar. It's about understanding cultural contexts, reading social cues, and adapting your communication style to different situations and cultures. In some cultures, direct communication is appreciated and expected. In others, a more indirect approach is preferred. For example, in the United States, it's perfectly acceptable to say, "I don't like spicy food" when ordering at a restaurant. But in some other cultures, you might phrase it more gently. "I prefer mild flavors," or "Could you make it not too spicy, please?" Body language and tone of voice are also crucial. A smile and friendly tone can overcome a lot of grammatical imperfections. I've seen travelers with limited English vocabulary have wonderful interactions simply because they were warm, patient, and showed genuine interest in connecting with people. Here's something I learned from years of traveling and teaching. People appreciate effort more than perfection. If you try to speak English, even if you make mistakes, most people will be patient and helpful. They can see that you're making an effort to communicate in their language, and that usually creates goodwill. Let me tell you about a conversation I witnessed in a small cafe in Scotland. A traveler from Italy was trying to order coffee, and his English was quite limited. But he was smiling, patient with himself, and when he didn't know a word, he would gesture or even show pictures on his phone. The cafe owner was charmed by his effort and ended up giving him a mini coffee tutorial, teaching him words like espresso, cappuccino, and latte. What could have been a simple transaction became a delightful cultural exchange, all because both people were open, patient, and kind. Practical review and confidence building. Let's take a moment to review some of the key phrases we've covered today, because repetition is how we build confidence and fluency. For airports, "I'd like to check in for my flight. Could you please repeat that?" And "Excuse me, I think I missed an announcement." For hotels, "I have a reservation under the name. I was wondering if you could help me with, and there seems to be a problem with my room." For restaurants, "What would you recommend? I'm allergic to, and could we have the check, please?" For transportation, "How long will it take to get there? Does this bus go to, and could you help me with directions?" For shopping, "I'm just looking, thank you. Do you have this in a different size? And how much is this?" For emergencies, "I need help. I've lost my passport and I have a problem." Now, here's my challenge for you. Even if you're not traveling soon, start practicing these phrases. Practice them in front of a mirror, record yourself saying them, or even better, find opportunities to use them in your daily life. Many of these phrases work just as well when you're helping tourists in your own city or when you're in situations where English is being used as a common language. Remember, confidence comes from preparation and practice. The more you practice these travel scenarios, the more natural they'll feel when you actually need them. And here's a secret. Even native English speakers sometimes feel nervous in unfamiliar travel situations. The difference is that they have the language skills to navigate those situations more easily. Your English Travel Toolkit. Before we wrap up today's episode, I want to give you what I call your English Travel Toolkit, a mental list of strategies that will serve you well in any travel situation. First, always be prepared with key information written down. Have your hotel address, important phone numbers, and your itinerary written clearly. This helps you communicate even when you're tired, stressed, or in a noisy environment. Second, learn to use the phrase, "Could you help me?" It's polite, clear, and opens doors to assistance in almost any situation. People want to help travelers, and this phrase invites that help. Third, don't be afraid to ask for clarification. "Could you speak more slowly?" And "Could you repeat that?" are not signs of weakness. They're signs of someone who wants to understand and communicate effectively. Fourth, use technology wisely, but don't rely on it completely. Translation apps are great backup tools, but human interaction and real conversation practice are irreplaceable for building genuine communication skills. Fifth, remember that making mistakes is part of the learning process. Every traveler, regardless of their English level, has stories about misunderstandings or communication mix-ups. These often become the most memorable and funny travel stories later. Looking forward, your English journey continues. As we come to the end of today's episode, I want you to know how proud I am of you for taking this step to improve your travel English. Learning a language is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself, and travel English opens up a world of possibilities, literally. Think about it. With the skills we've practiced today, you can confidently navigate airports, enjoy meals at local restaurants, find your way around new cities, and most importantly, connect with people from different cultures. You're not just learning phrases, you're building bridges to new experiences and friendships. I encourage you to start planning, even if it's just in your imagination, how you'll use these skills. Maybe it's a weekend trip to a nearby English-speaking city, or perhaps it's that dream vacation you've been thinking about. The important thing is to keep practicing and building your confidence. Remember, every expert was once a beginner, and every confident traveler once felt nervous about using English in foreign situations. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't isn't perfection, it's persistence and willingness to try. Here's what I want you to do this week. Choose 3 phrases from today's episode that you found most useful and practice them every day. Say them out loud, use them in imaginary conversations, and make them part of your active English vocabulary. And here's something exciting. In our next episode, we're going to explore English for making friends and socializing, which perfectly complements today's travel English. We'll learn how to start conversations with strangers, make plans with new friends, and navigate social situations with confidence and charm. Until then, keep practicing, keep dreaming about your next adventure, and remember, the world is waiting for you, and now you have the English skills to explore it with confidence. This has been Aurora with English with Aurora. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. Keep learning, keep growing, and I'll see you in the next episode. Safe travels, my dear English learners, wherever your journey may take you.